It's been more than 3 years since Sam Martinez died inside his WSU fraternity house. Murrow News 8's Albert James has a look at what's changed since then and what stayed the same.
It was a tragedy that reverberated through Pullman and beyond.
Breaking news at 5, a student has died at a Washington State University frat house.
The young man's life taken, stolen from his family after what police describe as an all-night party.
Police say his death may be alcohol related.
They believed it may be alcohol poisoning, doing CPR.
But for Jolene Houts and Hector Martinez, the 2019 death of their only son, Sam, was a nightmare.
When I got out of the car in our driveway and saw the police officers, I was just clinging to hope that maybe, he'd just been injured and we would fix him.
I remember the guy from Bellevue Police, he was tall and he gave me a big hug, and then I knew.
In 2021, 15 members of the suspended Alpha Tau Omega fraternity were charged with furnishing alcohol to minors at the event where Sam died. Hazing charges were not filed because the statute of limitations had already expired. Of those 15, 7 of them received no jail time and another 7 just served 1 day in jail. Sam's big brother got the longest sentence.
He was sentenced to 19 days in jail, 1 day for each year of Sam's life at our request. That's nothing. That's nothing compared to the loss that we've suffered.
Earlier this year, they took their grief and frustration to Olympia, where they were able to get legislation passed in hopes of curbing hazing.
It's about transparency and it's about education.
The law expands the definition of hazing to include all student groups and covers any activity that could be harmful regardless of consent. It also requires universities to post findings of misconduct investigations into student groups online. National organizations have to let a university know when they are investigating a chapter and also publish findings online. Hout says the history of misconduct at ATO was hidden out of plain sight. When Sam expressed interest in joining, she looked into the frat and found nothing concerning.
If we had had information, even a little bit of information about what was going on with Alpha Tau Omega at Washington State University, Sam would never have joined.
The bill also requires hazing training and education for students and staff, and requires universities to establish a hazing prevention committee. We talked with WSU spokesperson Phil Weiler about Sam's law. He says the university previously met similar goals, but reworked them to better match the new standards.
While we had something in place already, generally speaking, we would tweak it a little bit to make sure that it was in compliance with the new law.
However, the execution of the law doesn't appear to be complete. Only the hazing training for new students, a 16-minute presentation on YouTube, is currently available. Weiler says trainings for current students and staff are being worked on. As for the university's hazing prevention committee, it hasn't met this semester and is still looking for members. One part of the law also requires that universities verify each local chapter has lists of recent misconduct investigations on their websites. A Murrow News 8 review shows some chapters have it, some don't, and some don't even have websites at all. So we asked Weiler about it.
I would have to have a conversation with the folks in Greek life. I suppose if an organization doesn't have a website, we can't require that they make one. I think there is responsibility on the part of the organization to be in compliance with the law.
Weiler says that while the university officially recognizes and partners with chapters, that's as far as the relationship goes.
The community thinks that the university has control over and can, sort of impose restrictions on these organizations. And the fact is, really, we don't have the authority to do that because they are private organizations.
But Sam's family disagrees.
We want people to know that the school, was totally responsible for all these, and they only did give a little slap in the hand to these people, but we got a knife in our hearts.
They filed a lawsuit against the university in July of 2020 in which they say the institution failed their duty to act on the previous misconduct of ATO. The lawsuit was dismissed this March but is currently being appealed. So with Sam's law in effect, what impact does it have here on Greek Row? We spoke to two students who were involved in the Greek community, a former fraternity member and a graduating sorority member. They asked for their identities to remain anonymous out of fear of retaliation from the community. During his time in Greek life, the fraternity member felt that pledges being disrespected was just part of the culture.
I know stories of people that just had to be cleaning the house that they don't even live in for 8 hours a day, and it's just insane to think about.
Even as an upperclassman, the sorority member has been hazed and harassed by her sisters.
I haven't been treated very well as a member for years. Go from anything from kind of like almost getting pushed downstairs on several occasions to getting talked down to or getting told to shut the F up in chapter when I had a question.
At his fraternity, a senior leader was promptly removed after word got out about a large hazing incident he orchestrated.
We figured out he by himself hazed the entire pledge class, so he had to resign. We kicked him out of the fraternity and we dealt with it like quickly, which I was surprised about. I thought people would just look past it.
But while big incidents get reported, he says smaller incidents go under the radar because members just let things slide to stay in Greek life.
Many of these members are okay with it because they say it's quote-unquote worth it, because all they're looking for is partying and having fun, and for them that's just an obstacle, and then they can get to do that.
A big reason why hazing continues, the sorority member says, is because programming and education isn't taken seriously.
90% of the programmings that Pan and IC put on for sexual assault, druggings, and then alcohol abuse, they're a joke. It's someone who comes in and jokes around with us for an hour. It's a joke.
And enforcement is lax.
Someone died, and we're not even taking this seriously. Like, we took it seriously right until the pandemic, and then after the pandemic, no one cared. And they still don't care. Until you actually hold people accountable for their actions, instead of just, like, slapping them on the wrist, that's where things just go south.
We reached out to WSU's interfraternity and Pan-Hellenic councils to better understand the impact Martinez's death had on their processes and what community accountability looks like. IFC did not respond to our request, while Pan declined to comment, referring us to Phil Weiler, who previously made it clear.
Those are private organizations. They are not, the university does not really have any direct control over what they do.
As for Sam's family, they're looking to continue their crusade with legislation to increase hazing penalties.
Right now it is a misdemeanor, and that is the equivalent of stealing a shopping cart. And we just believe that the punishment should fit the crime. The penalty portion, the education, and the training, I think it's an important package of reforms that sends a really important message that hazing isn't tolerated in Washington State.
And they're working with the University of Washington's Information School to create a nationwide database of hazing incidents.
So the idea is to just throw a big net and bring all of that information together in one searchable place and give people that information and let them do what they need to do with it in terms of decision making.
Sam's death still brings pain for his parents, but even as they relive that pain through interviews, litigation, and legislation, they know they're taking on a worthy cause.
Sometimes we just want to, say, this is enough, we don't think we can go through this again. But as we think of Sam, I think that's what he will want us to help other kids.
We want to save a life for the one that was taken from us. And I don't know how else to say it.
Reporting from Pullman, Albert James, Murrow News 8.
University spokesman Phil Weiler sent a follow-up email explaining that the Hazing Advisory Committee just set their first meeting for December 19th. Weiler also explained that the university has a hazing training for employees as well that has been added to staff training. Weiler also declined to comment on the lawsuit appeal by the Martinez family.